After news spread throughout the company that the CEO fiancée I had once risked my life to save was now marrying her crush in a shotgun wedding, everyone expected me, the abandoned fiancée, to go absolutely insane with rage. But even after their child was born, I never made a scene. Instead, I focused entirely on following up on projects to help the struggling company stay afloat. My ex-fiancée assumed I had finally realized I was nothing more than her corporate workhorse, and with a smug face, she offered, "Seeing as you're smart enough to keep working hard and making money for me and the baby, I'll be generous and let you stay in the company. Consider it your chance to keep taking care of us." But it seemed she was flattering herself. I wasn't working for her or the kid. I was preparing in advance to take over the company next week. From now on, I would no longer compromise and play the role of her silent, supportive partner behind the scenes. I was going to replace her and become the new CEO. Chapter 1. I had just finished negotiating a deal with a client and stepped out of the conference room when I saw Pablo changing diapers for his and Melissa's baby at my desk. "Assistant Pablo, you're amazing, handling both work and childcare. Once Chairwoman Lynn returns from maternity leave, she absolutely has to promote and give you a raise." Totally. A baby born in the year of the snake is destined to be a little dragon. He's sure to grow up to be someone as outstanding as Assistant Pablo, true pillar of the company. The 5-square-meter office space was packed with project team colleagues. This used to be my private office. Now it was filled with baby supplies and had become Pablo's makeshift nursery at work. Even the awards I had earned for securing major deals were removed from the walls, replaced with daily photos of the baby from birth to the 1-month mark. In reality, there were plenty of vacant rooms in the company due to recent layoffs. But Pablo insisted he'd consulted a feng shui master who claimed my office was the best place for a child's growth. Everyone knew that was a lie Pablo made up just to spite me. Strangely enough, Melissa, who had always prided herself on being rational and scientific, actually believed it. She even demanded that I move to a cramped cubicle next to the restroom, saying it would help block negative energy from affecting her and Pablo's child. Not once did she express any guilt over breaking off our engagement and having a baby with Pablo. Snapping out of my thoughts, I noticed Pablo eyeing the freshly signed contract in my hands. With a grin, he came over. "Sorry about this, Director Chan. I've been busy with the baby lately, and Melissa still has a few more days of maternity leave. Thanks so much for taking care of client work in the meantime. I'll be sure to tell Melissa how much you've done." Though he sounded polite, Pablo's right hand sneaked out to snatch the signed contract from my grasp. Since joining the company a year ago, he had taken full advantage of Melissa's favoritism to steal project credit from me time and again. In the past, I tolerated it out of consideration for my relationship with Melissa, but now that she had married him, I had no reason to be patient any longer. I swatted his hand away without hesitation. "Pablo, you already took my fiancée. Now you want to steal the contract I just closed too?" Before Pablo could respond, our co-workers jumped in to defend him. "What do you mean, steal, Director Chan? That's really out of line." "Exactly. Assistant Pablo had to give that project to you only because he was too busy taking care of the baby. You lucked out and now you're acting like you're some hotshot. You're just a lazy leech who stumbled into a win. Who are you to act all self-righteous?" I found it all deeply ironic. Sure, Pablo was the one who brought in the client, but to impress them, he had made wild promises over drinks and falsely quoted the budget at only 60% of the original proposal. He won the business, but gave no thought to whether we could actually deliver. In the end, I worked late nights optimizing the tech and even paid out of pocket to grease the wheels with suppliers just to barely make the project viable. And now he was taking all the credit. Seeing that I wasn't backing down, Pablo kept smiling and said that as long as it benefited the company, it didn't matter who got the credit. But just as no one was looking, he pinched the baby in his arms, on purpose. A second later, the baby let out a wail and exploded with both pee and poop, splashing it all over me. Even the contract I had just signed was ruined beyond saving. "Oh no, Director Chan, I'm so sorry," Pablo said with mock embarrassment. "It's my first time being a dad. I'm not very experienced." My hand slipped. "Hope you don't mind." Seeing my face darken, the surrounding colleagues naturally wouldn't miss a chance to suck up to Pablo. They all chimed in. "Oscar, are you seriously getting worked up over a baby who just turned 1 month old? Have some shame. No wonder Lynn called off the engagement with that nasty temper of yours. You're nothing compared to how gentlemanly Assistant Pablo is." Hearing them bring up the broken engagement, I couldn't help but laugh coldly. Melissa and I had been together for 7 years, already engaged and preparing for the wedding, but a year ago, her ex, Pablo, suddenly reappeared. Melissa broke protocol to hire him into the company, and not long after that, she rushed to send me overseas on a business trip. By the time I returned, the news was already out. They were getting married because she was pregnant. Gentlemen, no, a beast in human skin was more like it. Still, I had more important things to do than argue with them. Calmly, I pulled a file from the drawer and threw the used diaper Pablo had just deliberately tossed onto my desk straight back at him. My bad. Too many late nights must have blurred my vision. Meant to throw it in the trash. Hand slipped. Hope you don't mind. A foul stench immediately wafted from Pablo's expensive suit. His face turned green, but I didn't give anyone a chance to protest. I grabbed the file and walked out. Drove straight to the Bureau of Industry and Commerce, and handed the document to the clerk. I'd like to register a change in shareholder information. It was the equity transfer agreement Melissa had signed herself 6 months ago, just before I went overseas. She had transferred all of her shares back to me. In truth, I was the original founder of the company, my capital, my tech, my vision. Naturally, the shares were mine, but years ago, after we made it big, I gave Melissa 51% of the company to thank her for sticking with me through the hard times and to fulfill her dream of being a boss. The overall situation hasn't been good in recent years, and the company was struggling. I decided to reclaim all the shares. I would rather take on the risks alone than see Melissa saddled with debt. I thought it would be a hard conversation. I even prepared a whole set of explanations, afraid she'd suspect I had selfish motives. But when I approached her the day before my flight, she didn't even read the document, just signed it and kept urging me to hurry and go. At the time, I'd even asked her, "Aren't you afraid I might screw you over?" She only smiled and helped pack my suitcase. "We're getting married soon. We're one family. What's yours is mine." Back then, I really believed she loved me deeply. That very night, I flew out, vowing to secure the partnership that could save the company. But when I returned triumphant, Melissa had already married Pablo, and had even given birth to a healthy baby boy. Only then did I realize she hadn't signed the papers out of trust. She was already pregnant and in a rush to marry Pablo before I noticed anything. That's why she signed so fast and pushed me to leave. Funny enough, that accident turned out to be a blessing. At least the company was still mine. After verifying the agreement, the clerk asked curiously, "Mr. Chan, for such a major transfer, how come Miss Lin didn't come with you?" I replied calmly, "She's still on maternity leave." The clerk blinked in surprise, then cheerfully congratulated me on becoming a father, happily processing the share transfer announcement. But I couldn't smile, because I wasn't the father of that child, and I wasn't her husband. As I stood there waiting for the approval to go through, lost in thought, my phone rang. It was Melissa. The moment I answered, her angry voice exploded through the line. "So what if Pablo ruined the contract? Just call the client and have them re-sign it. What's the big deal? Why did you cause a scene at the office and scare the baby?" Before she could finish ranting, the clerk brought over the papers for my signature. Signature needed. Oscar, it's work hours. Where the hell are you running off to instead of being at the company? After I signed, I answered her calmly, "Signing a contract." Melissa paused on the other end. Her tone instantly softened. "Well, that's more like it. Seeing as you're working so hard to earn money for me and the baby, I'll be nice and let you stay at the company. You can keep helping take care of us." I barely heard a word she said. My eyes were fixed on the new shareholder registry. I now held 91% of the shares. I was officially the new CEO. A genuine laugh escaped me. Melissa, on the other end, completely misunderstood. She thought I was moved by her kindness and said smugly, "Look at you, all happy. Keep it up. And when I return from the wellness center, I might just give you a promotion and a raise." She chuckled, said a few more things, and hung up. What she didn't know was that in 2 days, once the review period ended, I would officially be the new head of the company. I wondered if she'd still be laughing then. Chapter 2. After successfully reclaiming my company, I felt a huge weight lifted from my shoulders. I went home ahead of schedule, planning to pack my things and completely cut ties with Melissa. But the moment I opened the door, a strong musty, moldy smell hit me like a slap in the face. Melissa had spent the past few months in the hospital on bed rest and then moved to a postpartum recovery center after giving birth. Meanwhile, I had been away on business. This place hadn't been lived in or cleaned for nearly half a year. I headed to open the windows for ventilation, but as soon as I stepped into the living room, I tripped over something. Looking down, I realized it was a large picture frame that had been thrown on the floor. I picked it up, and saw it was the wedding photo Melissa and I had taken together. Thinking back, after our engagement, it was Melissa who had insisted we do a photo shoot at a studio. She had me try on dozens of suits, never quite satisfied, and spent the entire afternoon before finally picking a white one that she deemed perfect. It wasn't my style at all, but seeing how much effort she put in, I accepted it without complaint. The seriousness in her eyes that day is still etched clearly in my memory. Snapping back to the present, I wiped the dust off the frame, puzzled. That photo had always been hung in the bedroom. Why was it thrown on the living room floor? The moment I stepped into the bedroom, the reason became clear. Above the headboard now hung a different photo, one of Melissa and Pablo on their wedding day. In the picture, Melissa was heavily pregnant, cradled in Pablo's arms, smiling like a girl who had just received the whole world. And the outfits they wore, They were the exact same wedding dress and suit Melissa had spent hours carefully selecting. Only then did it dawn on me, no wonder she had been so picky that day, rejecting every outfit that looked good on me, and finally settling on a white suit that clearly didn't suit me at all. Turns out, it was never meant for me. Years of working in the field had tanned my skin from all the sun exposure. Naturally, the pure white suit looked mismatched and awkward on me, but Pablo, always in the office, fair-skinned and soft-spoken, looked like a storybook prince in white. I let out a bitter laugh and turned to pack my luggage. I planned to sell the apartment next. This place was originally a wedding gift from my parents. Now that there was no wedding, there was no need to keep it. Better to sell it and ease the company's cash flow pressure. But the moment I opened the closet, I couldn't help clenching my fists. All of my clothes were gone. In their place were Pablo's shirts, the ones he wore all the time. Without hesitation, I messaged Melissa to demand where my things had gone. About 15 minutes later, Melissa finally replied. Of course I threw them out. Pablo's rental was too far from the company, so I just let him move in. He has OCD and can't stand your stuff, so I tossed it all. Besides, you bought those things with the salary I paid you. It was my money to begin with. Do I need your permission to deal with my own things? I had to admit, Melissa had always had a real talent for twisted logic. When I didn't respond, she sent another message. What? Are you upset over that pile of junk? I heard what happened this morning at the office. If you obediently hand over the project to Pablo, I'll buy you some high-end replacements and even give you a little storage room to rest in. No need. Before she could finish typing, I blocked her on WeChat. Then I called a local junk hauler and told them to come clear everything out of the apartment. I contacted a real estate agent and listed the apartment for sale, then went to a hotel to rest. The next morning, the junk hauler sent me the payment. It wasn't much, just scrap value, 30 cents per kilogram, but I still made a decent amount. That said a lot about how much Melissa doted on Pablo. She'd probably buy him the whole world if she could. Just as I was getting up to shower, Melissa suddenly called me. Oscar, who said you could sell the wedding apartment? Where do you expect Pablo and the baby to live now? And where are his designer suits and gaming console? Where the hell did you throw them? On the other end of the line, Melissa was so furious she was practically gasping for air. But I just found it ironic. My belongings could be thrown out like trash, but Pablo's were treated like sacred treasures. I replied flatly, oh, so you do remember this was our wedding apartment? Well, since you went and married Pablo, what's the problem with me selling it? As for the stuff inside, I sold it all for scrap. There was silence on the other end, but soon Melissa let out a cold, mocking laugh. Oscar, do you think selling the apartment is going to stop me? Don't think I don't see through you. You're just trying to play hard to get, pulling petty stunts like this to get my attention. Know your place. You're just a tool I hired to work for me. Don't go fantasizing about things that aren't yours. And with that, she hung up. Almost at the same time, Pablo posted a tweet. It was a photo of him signing a real estate contract at a housing agency, with a caption that read, "Finally got a place of my own in the city." Pablo was just an assistant at the company with a modest salary. Add to that his spendthrift lifestyle, there was no way he could afford to buy property. Clearly, Melissa had paid for it, buying back the very apartment I'd just listed for sale, and Pablo had deliberately tweeted it to flaunt in front of me. But instead of getting angry, I nearly burst out laughing. Though housing prices had dropped in recent years, I had bought the apartment early on, so I still made a profit. In other words, Melissa had essentially handed over 2 years' worth of the company's earnings right back to me, all for a depreciating piece of property that Pablo now treated like some kind of treasure. To celebrate, I treated myself to a long overdue gourmet meal. Later, the Bureau of Industry and Commerce sent me a text confirming the approval of the shareholding change. Feeling great, I got ready to return to the office and officially take over the company. But the moment I stepped through the door, I ran into Melissa. "What are you doing here? Weren't you?" Before I could finish, Melissa suddenly slapped me across the face, her expression ice cold. Chapter 3. Oscar. As a senior employee, is this how you set an example? Skipping work for 2 straight days, you're a disgrace to the team. I've worked so hard to build this company, not to pay the salary of a slacker like you. Starting tomorrow, your entire year's performance record will be wiped clean. You're no longer a director. Go assist Pablo and learn how to behave. Hearing Melissa announce my punishment, the colleagues nearby didn't even try to hide their schadenfreude. The company wasn't big to begin with, and with Pablo constantly fanning the flames, I'd long become everyone's favorite punching bag. But this whole absenteeism accusation, complete nonsense. I had applied for a week of business travel last month, well in advance, and didn't need to clock in at the office. Melissa herself had approved it. Let's be honest, this was just her finding an excuse to vent on my behalf of Pablo. Seeing me stay quiet, Melissa's brows furrowed in irritation. Oscar, I'm talking to you. Are you deaf? Can't you see the baby's diaper leaked again? Go help Pablo clean it up. unless you want the whole office to reek. Still, I didn't move, because now, I was the one who owned this company. Before I could speak, Pablo stepped forward with his usual fake kindness. Melissa, don't be mad. Brother Oscar probably just overworked himself on his last trip. I'm young and strong, I can handle working and watching the baby at the same time. It's no big deal. But before he could even lift a finger, Melissa stopped him with concern written all over her face. No need, you've already lost weight these past months helping with the pregnancy and the baby. And now that you've been promoted and have a project to manage, you should focus on your speech. You'll need to present at the product launch soon. As for him, if he wants to stay at the company, let him do the grunt work. That'll cure his laziness and show him just how hard you've had it. I stared at the pity in Melissa's eyes toward Pablo and found it nothing short of absurd. Pablo was nothing more than a sweet-talking freeloader. At work, he dumped both his job and the baby onto his sycophants while he hid in his office eating fried chicken and playing video games. And all this time, when the company was struggling, I was the one running around trying to land clients. Even when I got into a car accident, I didn't go to the hospital. I went straight to a client's office to sign a contract. Even the client was impressed by my persistence. But in Melissa's version of events, I was just a lazy moocher living off others' hard work, love and indifference. The contrast couldn't be more obvious. Coming back to the moment, I stared directly at Melissa and spoke with quiet resolve. I remember the employee manual clearly states, bringing babies to the workplace and disrupting operations is strictly prohibited. And I submitted my business trip application in advance, so I'm not required to clock in. You have no right to penalize me. This was probably the first time in 7 years I had openly opposed Melissa. She was visibly stunned, but quickly recovered with a sneer. Oscar, fine, you've got my attention, I'll give you that. But you've chosen the wrong way to go about it. I'm the CEO of this company. If I say you skipped work, then you skipped work. As for those projects and client files in your hands, I've already had them backed up. Don't think you're irreplaceable. HR, prepare a termination letter and notify all our partner companies to blacklist him from any future hiring. The HR rep was just about to act when I raised a hand to stop them. No need. I've already prepared the termination letters. Pablo lit up with joy but tried to put on a sympathetic face. Oscar, my guy, is this really necessary? How about you apologize to Melissa? She's kind-hearted. Since you did take care of her for a few years, she might be generous enough to give you a job cleaning toilets or unclogging drains. Melissa, seeing me hand over the letter, looked smug enough to tilt her chin to the ceiling. Well, didn't think you were self-aware after all. All right, fine. Since you're such a good, obedient little dog, if you're willing to give up. Before she could finish, I cut her off and tossed 2 termination letters right at her and Pablo. That's enough. Spare me the nonsense. You two can get out now. Staring at the termination letter in her hand, Melissa froze for a moment, then let out a scoffing laugh. You're just an employee. What gives you the right to fire me? I smiled calmly and pulled out the shareholder transfer notice. President Lin, or rather, Miss Lin, you really are forgetful, aren't you? Take a good look. I'm now the official CEO of this company. As for you and Pablo, due to violating company policy, disrupting the workplace, and unauthorized access to project data, you are both officially terminated, effective immediately. Chapter 4. Seeing the official shareholder change notice in black and white, all color drained from Melissa's face. Her pupils shrank like she had just seen a ghost. She pointed at me in disbelief. Oscar, when did you become the CEO? But almost instantly, it was as if something clicked in her mind. Her expression twisted into a sneer as she suddenly snatched the document from my hand and tore it to shreds. Oh, look at you now, Oscar. Just found some random image online, slapped on a fake stamp, and thought you could scare me. Who do you think you are? Really think you're somebody now? She looked at me like I was a pathetic clown, the corners of her mouth curling into a mocking smirk. Pablo quickly caught on too, forcing a worried look onto his face as he stepped forward with fake concern. Oscar, I get that you're upset, but you can't be doing this. Forging corporate documents is a serious crime. You could go to jail. If you really don't want to quit, I can try and talk to Melissa for you. No need to go down such a wrong path. His phony concern stirred up the rest of the onlookers. Yeah, Oscar, are you out of your mind? Do you seriously think you could become CEO? Delusional. He's obviously lost it after being dumped by President Lin and outshined by VP Pablo. Tisk. He's finished now. Lost his job and probably heading to jail too. I looked around at their faces, and for a moment, I felt a chill in my bones. I had thought they were just misled by Melissa and Pablo, that they'd picked the wrong side out of ignorance. But clearly, I'd been too naive. These people were nothing more than spineless opportunists, going wherever the wind blew. No wonder the company had been going downhill with a pack of backstabbing sycophants and bootlickers. How could it not? Parasites, liabilities. Keeping them around would only be a long-term disaster. My eyes turned cold as I swept my gaze across the chattering crowd. Oh. So, it seems some of you are curious what it feels like to be fired too. My voice wasn't loud, but it carried a chill that cut straight to the bone. The same people who had just been mocking me froze up like ducks with their throats grabbed, silent in an instant. Melissa noticed the shift and thought I was just bluffing, trying to challenge her authority. Oscar, are you threatening my employees now? You've really lost your mind. She pulled out her phone and dialed the police. Hello. Yes, officer. I'm calling from XT Tower. There's someone here forging corporate documents, disrupting business operations, and threatening staff. Please send someone immediately. After hanging up, Melissa raised her chin even higher, as if she could already see me being dragged away in handcuffs. Pablo chimed in helpfully. Oscar, if you just apologize to Melissa now, she might soften up, maybe even write a letter of leniency for you. You won't have to serve too many years. I just watched their performance with icy calm, saying nothing. Soon, 2 uniformed police officers entered. Who made the call? What's going on? The older officer asked sternly. Melissa immediately rushed forward like she'd found her savior, pointing at me with theatrical urgency. Officer, it's him. He was fired, and he couldn't handle it, so he forged some fake CEO document, caused a huge scene, and threatened to fire other employees. He's seriously disrupting our operations. Please arrest him right away. She threw me a smug glance, eyes full of smug certainty, like she'd already won. Oscar, hear that? The police are here. If you kneel now and beg, maybe I'll go easy on you. I could talk to them, write a statement of forgiveness, help you get a shorter sentence. Watching her act like she had everything under control, I almost laughed. Instead, I calmly turned to the officers and handed over my ID and a fresh copy of the official shareholder change notice. Officers, I'm Oscar, the new legal representative and CEO of this company. This is my identification and the legally effective corporate registration change. Effective as of today. You can verify it in the government system. I pointed to Melissa and Pablo. As for these two, due to severe violations of company policy and suspicion of stealing confidential business data, they have been officially terminated. The dismissal letters were issued moments ago. They refused to accept the decision, tore up official documents, caused a disturbance, and interfered with our employees' work. The older officer took my ID and document, while the younger one pulled out a police terminal to begin verifying the information. Melissa scoffed, clearly unimpressed. Officer, don't believe a word he says. It's all fake, photoshopped. I'm the real CEO. He's just a disgruntled ex-employee. Seconds later, the younger officer looked up and nodded at his partner. Then, he walked over, toward Melissa. She started smiling triumphantly, but in the next second, the officer pulled out a pair of cold metal handcuffs and, with a click, locked them around Melissa's wrists. Chapter 5. Melissa was completely stunned, her mind going blank. She looked down at the metal on her wrists, then jerked her head up to stare at the police officer, her face full of disbelief and indignation. Oh, officer, what are you doing? Why are you cuffing me? You've got the wrong person. It's him, Oscar. He's the one disturbing the peace. You should be arresting him. Pablo panicked too, quickly jumping in to explain. Officer, this has to be a mistake. Melissa is the company's CEO. We have employees who can testify. The older officer remained expressionless, his tone calm and unwavering. We've already verified everything. He held up his police tablet, its screen clearly displaying the latest corporate registration details. According to the official records, Mr. Oscar is now the legal CEO of this company. You two have already been dismissed. You have no business remaining here and causing a disruption in the workplace. Now please come with us to the station. You'll be providing statements regarding your obstruction of business operations and disruption of workplace order. As he spoke, he nodded to the younger officer, who promptly placed handcuffs on Pablo, who was still too stunned to react. All around us, the co-workers who had just been sneering at me stood frozen in shock, jaws practically hitting the floor. After a long moment, Melissa suddenly snapped, struggling against the handcuffs and glaring at me like a madwoman. Oscar, what the hell did you do to me? My company? How the hell did my company become yours? When did you pull this off? You despicable bastard. I'm going to sue you. I'll see you in court for corporate theft and fraud. Pablo's face was equally grim. He tried to keep calm, but his voice trembled just slightly as he looked at me. Oscar, just stop this. If you admit what you did now, it's not too late. If those charges stick, document forgery, misappropriating company assets, it's not going to be just a year or two behind bars. Listening to them talk as if they were still offering helpful advice, I couldn't help but laugh. Even now, they truly believed I'd done something shady behind the scenes. I gave a cold snort, then slowly pulled another document from my briefcase. It was the same equity transfer agreement Melissa had signed before. I flipped directly to the last page and held up the signature section right in front of Melissa. There it was, her name, Melissa Lynn. written in her own unmistakable handwriting. President Lin. Oh wait, no, Miss Lin. You really are forgetful, aren't you? This equity transfer agreement, you begged me to sign it, remember? Said you needed me to clean up the mess you'd made. Plain as day. Black ink on white paper. Why don't you take a good look at it yourself? Chapter 6. My tone was calm, but there was a trace of mockery in it. Melissa immediately lost control. Oscar, you planned this, didn't you? You set this whole trap from the beginning. And to think I trusted you, I let you manage the company. This is how you repay me. I looked at her twisted face, feeling nothing but speechless. Trusted me? She treated me like a backup plan, a tool. Enjoyed all my efforts while secretly hooking up with Pablo. That's what she calls trust. She signed a legal document without reading it, and now it's somehow my fault. Miss Lin, I said flatly, you can talk nonsense over a meal, but not in business. It's all clearly written in black and white. You signed it. Did I force you? Did I lie and say it was a different document? My calm demeanor finally pushed Melissa over the edge. I'll kill you, you thief. Like a lunatic, she suddenly broke free from the younger officer, who hadn't even reacted in time, and lunged at me with claws bared, aiming to scratch my face. Unfortunately for her, she both overestimated herself and underestimated the police. The older officer stepped in with a single motion, twisted her arm behind her back, and pinned her down with practiced precision. Let go of me, let go. He's the con man. He stole my company. He's the one you should arrest. Melissa kept struggling, flailing and screaming incoherently. The older officer's brows furrowed, his patience clearly gone. Take her away, he ordered coldly, no longer entertaining her shouting. The younger officer stepped up. One grabbed her left, the other her right, dragging the still thrashing Melissa mercilessly toward the door. Pablo, pale as a corpse, was escorted by another officer. His expression hollow, he trailed behind her. He opened his mouth like he wanted to say something, but in the end, all that came out was a weary, defeated sigh. Clack, the office's glass door closed behind them, cutting off all sound. A few moments of stunned silence passed, then the room erupted into murmurs. Director Chan, I knew you weren't ordinary. We always suspected Melissa and Pablo were up to no good. They were always suppressing you, trust us. We saw it and felt terrible about it. Yeah, when Melissa and Pablo were in charge, they crushed anyone below them. We had no choice but to play along. Exactly, we've always supported you. You're the bigger person, please don't hold it against us. One after another, voices pled for forgiveness, rushed to shift blame, and scrambled to pledge loyalty. I finally spoke, my voice calm but sharp, cutting through the noise. Finished. The room fell dead silent. All eyes turned nervously toward me. Just now, those who joined Melissa in insulting me, who disrupted the office, and those who sucked up to Pablo in secret, leaking company resources, lining their own pockets. You're all fired. Starting now. Pack your things and leave. The entire office exploded in chaos. Oscar, you've gone too far. We've worked here for years. Maybe no great achievements, but at least we've worked hard. Yeah, you can't just fire us like that. What about severance? According to labor law, firing without cause means you owe us double compensation. There's a bunch of us. If you try anything shady, we'll file a mass complaint with labor arbitration and shut this place down. Just moments ago, these people were groveling. Now they were worked into a frenzy. They figured I wouldn't dare make a move now. Not after just taking over. I wouldn't risk turning the whole company against me. Right. I raised an eyebrow and replied calmly. Who told you this is a baseless dismissal? Do you really think no one knows about the things you've done? As I spoke, I pulled a black USB flash drive from my briefcase and walked to the computer at the head of the conference room. Then, I plugged it in. Chapter 7. The projector lit up, casting its glow onto the white screen as rows of folders appeared. I clicked one at random. Inside were detailed financial records, email screenshots, and even several clips of covert surveillance footage. The contents directly implicated several department heads present in the room, colluding with Pablo, inflating project budgets, pocketing kickbacks, and funneling company profits into their own accounts. I didn't stop there. One by one, I opened more folders. Each one corresponded to a group of people. Some had abused their procurement authority to accept bribes from suppliers. Some had leaked proprietary company technology to competitors. Others had used company resources to moonlight for private gigs. Every file, every case, utterly damning. The office had fallen completely silent, save for the low hum of the projector fan. Back when Pablo parachuted into the company and profits suddenly started plummeting, I had already begun to suspect something. There was no way a kept man, even with Melissa backing him, could do that much financial damage so quickly. I launched a private investigation, and what I uncovered was staggering: a vast web of corruption Pablo had built, ensnaring much of the company's mid to senior management. They protected each other, covered for one another, forming a parasitic alliance that fed off the company like termites chewing through its foundations. No wonder Melissa had been so easily sidelined. No wonder Pablo had run wild with impunity. As the damning evidence continued flashing across the screen, those who had moments earlier been shouting about compensation and legal action now stood frozen, faces pale as ash. "This is your last chance," I said evenly. "Submit your resignations now. Pack your things. Get out. If you leave quietly, I'll act like none of this happened. None of this will reach the police. But if you insist on dragging this out," I held up the USB drive, my voice cold and devoid of emotion, "then we'll settle it in court." The room held its breath for a moment. Then, someone tossed their employee badge onto the floor, lowered their head, and staggered back to their desk. Then came the second, the third. More and more followed, scattering like rats from a sinking ship, silently gathering their belongings. No one dared bring up severance again. In less than 30 minutes, what had once been a bustling office was nearly deserted. Only 7 or 8 people remained standing. I remembered them. When Pablo was making my life hell, these were the ones who had quietly helped me, some openly, others behind the scenes. There weren't many of them, but they were enough. The company needed downsizing anyway. Cutting out the rot would only help, and it saved me a fortune in severance pay. I looked at those who had stayed behind and, for the first time since taking over the company, allowed myself a genuine smile. From today on, this is our new beginning. Let's keep our heads up. The road ahead is long, but we'll walk it together. After a few words of encouragement and assigning some follow-up work, I dove into the mountain of files waiting on my desk. Cleaning house had only been the first step. A whole mess still needed to be sorted. Before I knew it, night had fallen. One by one, the remaining employees headed home. In the end, I was alone. Rubbing my aching temples, I stared at the empty office and let out a sigh. Looked like I'd be sleeping on the office couch tonight. I got up, thinking I'd find a blanket, but just then, the glass door of the office was suddenly pushed open from the outside. Instinctively, I looked up. Standing in the doorway was a familiar figure. Melissa. Chapter 8. I frowned, my voice devoid of warmth. "What are you doing here?" Melissa walked in, a cautious, almost unfamiliar smile of appeasement on her face. She was holding a delicate-looking thermal food container. I brought you something to eat," she said softly. She placed the container on my desk and gently opened it. A few home-cooked dishes sat inside, still steaming, their aroma quickly filling the room. "You've been working so late. Eating too much takeout isn't good for your health." Her voice was quiet, deliberately gentle. I couldn't even remember the last time I had a meal she cooked. Back when we first started the company, living together in a cramped rented apartment, we were always swamped. Barely had time to eat. She used to be just like this, cooking meals in all sorts of creative ways, placing the food in front of me while fussing about how health is the foundation of the revolution. Watching me wolf down food with worry in her eyes. Back then, there had been light in her eyes, a spark of hope for the future, and maybe, for me. I shook my head, dispelling the memories that no longer had a place. Noticing I was silent and just staring blankly at the food, Melissa's eyes flashed with a hint of triumph. She thought I was softening, that the meal had broken through my defenses. "Oz. I know, I was wrong before," she began, her voice trembling with emotion. "It was that bastard Pablo. He tricked me with sweet words and blinded me. But now, I see who he really is. I'm filing for divorce, taking him to court, and once it's finalized, that apartment, I'll give it back to you immediately. Oz, please, give me another chance, won't you?" She reached for my arm, eyes wide with what she likely thought was a pitiful, heart-tugging gaze. When I didn't respond, she picked up a pair of chopsticks, grabbed a plump shrimp, and brought it to my lips. "I got ahead of myself earlier. Just eat while it's hot, okay? These shrimp are really fresh. Eat up, it's good for you." Her movements were smooth, as if we were still the loving couple from the past, but we weren't. That version of us no longer existed. I stared coldly at her, at the shrimp held just inches from my mouth, then slapped the chopsticks from her hand. Melissa's arm froze midair. The smile on her face froze too. She looked at me in disbelief, her eyes quickly turning red. Is it not good?" I curled my lips into a mocking smile. "Melissa, did you forget something? I've been taking medication for my stomach lately. The doctor told me very clearly, no seafood. Otherwise, it could lead to drug poisoning." Chapter 9. All the color drained from Melissa's face in an instant. I'm sorry, Oz. I forgot. I didn't mean to. I swear, I was just careless. Forgot. I sneered inwardly. It wasn't that she forgot, she never cared enough to remember in the first place. After all, during the worst of my stomach problems, her heart and eyes had been full of Pablo. Whether I lived or died, when had she ever truly cared? Melissa continued to babble out apologies in a panic. "I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. I'll order you something else right now." What do you want? Something light, porridge, maybe. Something good for your stomach. I cut her off, my tone flat, emotionless. No need. Melissa trembled all over. Then the tears finally came, fast and uncontrollable. She dropped to her knees and clung to my leg, sobbing like her world had collapsed. I was wrong. I know I was wrong. Please. Just this once, please forgive me. The baby. I got rid of it. We can pretend he never existed. He won't come between us anymore. And Pablo, I've already reported everything he did to the police. There's solid evidence. He's going to spend the rest of his life in prison. He won't ever bother us again. Oz. She lifted her tear-streaked face, eyes full of desperate hope. As long as you'll forgive me, take me back, I'll do anything, anything at all. But all I felt was a wave of nausea rising from my gut. To win me back, she had been willing to get rid of her own child, to betray the men who once shared her bed without hesitation. What kind of person wouldn't she turn on? I forcefully shook her off and took a few steps back, putting distance between us, watching her on her knees, her face twisted with grief. All I felt was pure revulsion. Moments later, 2 security guards burst into the office. One grabbed each of her arms and began dragging her out. It wasn't until her figure disappeared through the door that silence returned to the office. That night was the last time I ever saw Melissa. I threw myself entirely into rebuilding the company, cleaning up the mess, reshaping the corporate culture, exploring new business opportunities. 3 years passed in the blink of an eye. The company steadily pulled itself out of the mire, found stable ground again in the industry, stronger, more resilient than ever before. The next time I heard about Melissa, it was in a police bulletin. Apparently, Pablo had earned early release from prison for good behavior, and the first thing he did upon walking free was find Melissa, working at a small restaurant, and end her life with a fruit knife. The motive? Likely his resentment over her betrayal. I heard the news while signing a new business contract. Inside, I didn't feel much of anything, just the faintest wisp of sighing regret, so light it barely existed. In this chaotic world of fleeting passion and bitter lovers, it all ends in nothing anyway. Maybe, living alone isn't such a bad option after all.